Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2023 HBO series, The Idol. Now, this show is so tacky, so gross, and so terrible that it honestly should have been called The Ick. This was, by a lot of critics' opinions, the worst television show of 2023. And after watching it, I can definitely see why. I haven't seen that many shows from that year, so honestly, I can't say that it's the worst one that I've seen from 2023 because I would need to watch more shows from that year to really make a fair judgment. But this would definitely be on the list. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the show, I would like to give a special shout out to Shine for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. A link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, The Idol is a show that is created by Sam Levinson, The Weeknd, and Reza Fahim, and it has a pretty tumultuous backstory because it was originally written and I believe directed by a different uh, person. The original director was Amy Simons, and she had a completely different vision versus what the show ultimately became. I think from what I read, her vision was more serious, more straight laced, so to speak. Not as much sexy sleaziness, and not as many scenes that were laced with cocaine. And I think what happened was, I believe since The Weeknd was pretty involved with the production, he didn't like her vision for it, and so Sam Levinson came on board, or I think Sam Levinson might have been involved in a producer sort of capacity, but he didn't like what Amy put together. And since he's the guy behind Euphoria, which was a hit show for HBO, he was basically able to take over the production and start changing things and changing cast members and changing the tone and changing stories and all different sort of elements of the show. And basically, what happened was Sam Levinson and The Weeknd, they took Amy's show, broke it into a million pieces in front of her, and threw it in the trash, and then brought in something else entirely different with the same name, and then told her to just accept it and deal with it. And understandably, she was like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And I think her vision to take things a little bit more seriously, I think that would have paid off, and I think that would have made for a better show. Because honestly, the best parts of this show are the bits where it is being more serious. When it's trying to be satirical, when it's trying to be uh, arousing, when it's trying to be erotic, when it's trying to be funny or shocking, it's at its worst. Now, it's a 5 episode series that thankfully only lasted one season. And I guess I read that it was supposed to be 6 episodes, and I am so thankful that it's only five. I mean, it was excruciating enough to sit through for 5 episodes. I can't even imagine how painful this would have been to watch if it was 6 episodes long. So Sam Levinson directed all of the episodes, all five, and I will give the show this. It's got a nice sense of visual style and flair. Sam does a pretty good job directing this series. It's got that tawdriness that you expect from this kind of story. It's got the sleazy camera work and the glitz and the glamour. It's at points a show that looks like a music video, which is fitting for a show about a pop star. There's some good usage of camera angles, different types of camera shots, and overall techniques. In particular, there's some really nice wide shots in this. And I think visually, it looks fine. And at points, when it comes to certain scenes, it actually looks phenomenal. Like it's straight from a photo shoot for a supermodel or for an album release. But at other times, it looks kind of plain, kind of ordinary, but not a bad looking show from a visual standpoint. I think Sam uh, did a good job from a directing standpoint when it comes to every episode. Not so much when it comes to writing, because he and the Weeknd basically wrote every episode. I think he's a better visual artist than he is an artist when it comes to writing stories and writing characters. And the main cast is Lily Rose Depp, who plays Jocelyn, this young up and coming pop starlet. And you have The Weeknd, who plays this nightclub owner and con artist and cult leader named Tedros. You've got Suzanna Son, who plays Chloe, a musician who's a part of Tedros's family of other musicians, which also includes uh, um, Moses Sumney, who plays Isaac, and Ramsey, who plays Ramsey. And you have people who are a part of Jocelyn's circle, like Xander, who is Jocelyn's creative director and childhood friend, and Diane, who's a backup dancer and close friend of Jocelyn's, Leia, who is Jocelyn's best friend and assistant. And by the way, Troye Sivan plays Xander, Rachel Sennott plays Leia, um, Jennie Ruby Jane plays Diane. And you also have Jocelyn's managers. Destiny, played by Divine Joy Randolph, and Chaim, who's played by Hank Azaria. You also have some bit parts like Dan Levy plays Jocelyn's publicist Benjamin, and you have Eli Roth who plays a Live Nation representative named Andrew Finkelstein. And you have Jane Addams, who plays Nikki Katz, this very cynical, bitchy record label exec. So that's your cast. And the performances in this show are very hit and miss. When they hit, they're actually some pretty good performances. They actually are fun and feature some good acting. But when they miss, they whiff hard. And it is absolutely a big reason why this show is not really very good, and why the show is very firmly in the below average category. And I think the two leads is a big part of why this show is so lackluster. Lily Rose Depp, I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought her performance was absolutely terrible or atrocious. I just feel that it was very meh. I think she does a pretty decent job when it comes to showing emotion when it comes to her character, when her character is going through some things, or she's upset, or she's remembering what happened to her in terms of her relationship with her mother, at least so you think. And she's good at being devious and manipulative and being fake, but she's not as good when it comes to being charismatic and charming, which is what I really feel a pop starlet and a pop diva has to be. So the whole pop diva aspect just kind of felt like it was inauthentic because of the way that Lily Rose Depp played the character. Even though she looks the part, I just don't think she has the inherent charisma to really pull the role off. Also, a lot of the sexier scenes with her were just awkward. Like a lot of performances in this. The most awkward of them all is the Weeknd as Tedros, and it's not only awkward, but it's also just abysmal. He is absolutely whack. He delivers a total whack ass performance that's about as believable as the fake ass rat tail that he wears throughout the show. I don't know what the Weeknd was thinking here. I don't think he had that much acting experience before this, but I guess he decided I'm a good enough actor. I can be such an integral part of the show that I'm also producing. Uh, it makes it come across like it's some really half-assed vanity project by the Weeknd, and not really anything more than that. And his performance is just embarrassing. It is so fucking bad. There are scenes where he's supposed to be intimidating, and he's about as intimidating as a gnat. You don't buy it at all. There's this whole scene where he's trying to intimidate this guy at a dress shop for looking at Jocelyn. So, what are you doing? What are you doing? You looking at her? Stop looking at her. Stop looking at her, you bitch. Like that's the level of acting that the Weeknd provides when it comes to him trying to be intimidating. Or this brilliant scene where this guy is like, "Are you gay?" "No, I'm not gay." It's like, do we really have lines like that? Do we really? To be fair, I don't think any actor would have been able to make that come across as believable or authentic. But I mean, come on now. And there's like stuff where he's supposed to be, I think, comedic with him doing martial arts moves and going wah, and while he's drunk, and it's cringe. You don't buy him as this leader of a cult of musicians. You don't buy him as a guy who is somebody that people gravitate towards, who people are drawn to. You don't buy him as a lover. You don't buy him when it comes to his romance or his relationship or his connection with Jocelyn. You just don't buy him, period. He just is fake. He comes across as fake as fuck and a phony and a poser. And it's really, honestly, one of the worst things about the show. I mean, you got scenes where he's talking to Lily Rose Depp's character Jocelyn, and he's like talking about how he wants her to suck his dick, and it's just as awful as it sounds. There's just so much about this performance that is just really bad, and I don't know what the hell the Weeknd was thinking, and I don't know what anyone at HBO was thinking. Like, okay, he's one of the producers. So fucking what? You're HBO. Just be like, man, you can't act. I'm sorry. You're coming in and you're changing things, and you're coming in with Sam Levinson, and you're taking over the project, and you're recasting all these people, including Anne Heche, who performed and did a role in this show that's completely lost to time, and it happened to be her last role that she did before she died. And we're gonna keep the Weeknd. His performance is good enough. It's not. Oh, but if we don't have him in it, then we don't have his music. The music was just so anyway. Just hire some other artist. Like your HBO. Like, but that's just my personal take on it. I know there's some people who think his performance is really nuanced and layered and great, and I don't know what performance they were watching, cuz I don't think it was the same one. But there was a member of his cult that I thought delivered a genuinely good performance in Suzanna Sohn as Chloe. She has a great voice in terms of her vocals, and I've just felt the performance was really captivating. You know, with the innocence that the character provided, as well as a cluelessness and this blank slate sort of thing, and there was just a certain a charm to her performance that I really liked. And I felt out of all of the people who played members of his family, she was definitely the biggest standout because I mean, uh, this guy Moses Sumney is Isaac. Other than him being built like a brick house and being very flexible, I don't see what is so amazing about his performance in this. Not just his acting, but also his singing. Like he plays a character who's supposedly so good at singing that he will make your girl's panties drop and make her pussy get wet the moment he starts singing, and he sounds generic as hell. He sounds like any other mediocre uh, male singer using a falsetto and trying to sound sexy. It doesn't sound at all that impressive. He's using some falsetto that I've heard a million times, almost reminded me of stuff that Eddie Murphy would do just for shits and giggles. I don't understand what was so impressive about this guy other than his physical size and all of his muscles. Uh, I feel the same way about Ramsey. I don't think she was knocking my socks off either when it comes to her music or her acting. And then there were other actors and actresses that was just kind of on, like Troye Sivan as Xander, just kind of just very just can take it or leave it kind of performance. Jane Addams is very one note role playing a bitchy record label exec, but she was okay. But there were moments where she tried to be funny, and it was really painful. And to be fair, I mean, who's gonna make lines like "cock blocking America" funny or work? But she still was like clearly trying to be funny, and it just never really clicked. And then you have like Jennie Ruby Jane as Diane. She's a good dancer, but she cannot act anywhere near as well as she dances. Uh, Rachel Sennott is Leia. I like her as an actress. I thought she was great in Bottoms, and I didn't mind her in Bottom. I mean, in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I was almost gonna say Bottoms, Bottoms, Bottoms. That's probably because there's so much ass shots in this show that I probably had that on my brain. Um, but her performance is just very awkward and muted. Like it's just very just low energy, and I know she can do more. And I think honestly, at a certain point, I think she was just not at all believing in this show. And you can definitely see that in her performance. Just going through the motions, just she's there on the set, but she's not there, if you know what I mean. Um Hari Neff as Talia Hirsch as Vanity Fair writers, oh, fine. But at the same time, not really the best performance. It seemed like they cast her solely because she was trans and not for any other reason. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think having representation is a good thing, but I mean, honestly, I feel it's a better idea to just cast people who can act. I don't buy that she nailed the audition. I really don't. Um, and I would say Divine Joy Randolph and Hank Azaria, the two of them were a good pair. I liked their dynamic with one another. And Divine Joy Randolph, in particular, she has some scenes with Suzanna's son that I thought were actually really great. And I would say she was definitely one of the better performers in this, along with Hank Azaria. Eli Roth, he plays a good douchebag in this. Mike Dean, who plays himself, he needs to stay the hell away from acting. Stay in the booth. Stay being the guy working behind, the DJ booth, or the guy who's working on people's music and shit. You're no actor. And it seems like the only reason why he got this role is because of the Weeknd or because of Sam Levinson or both. I don't know. But he didn't add anything to this other than more just fake, inauthentic, just awful performances, which this show has way too much of anyway. And normally I talk about each episode in depth. I don't really want to do that with this show because there's not much to these episodes other than some generic plot line about a pop star and their issues and their daily troubles and sex and more sex and sleaze and a really painfully forced attempts to try to shock the audience. Other than that, there's really not much when it comes to what happens in every episode. I mean, this is a show where the big drama in the first episode, the pilot, is your star taking a selfie with cum all over her face that happens to get leaked to the internet. That's your big drama. That's the big drama in the first episode. And the 5 episodes are Pop Tarts and Rat Tails, Double Fantasy, Daybreak, Stars Belong to the World, and Jocelyn Forever. And they all feature a teleplay by Sam Levinson based on a story by The Weeknd and Sam Levinson. And here is a, a, a pretty faithful an accurate rundown of all 5 episodes of The Idol. The show centers around Jocelyn, who is this aspiring young pop star who is at a low point in her career at the start of the series. Her tour is on hold. She's had to refund a bunch of tickets because she's in the process of a mental breakdown or just got out of it because she lost her mother to cancer. And all of her managers and all of the other people who are a part of her circle are trying to motivate her, trying to get her to do this music video for this song World Class Sinner and trying to get her in good spirits and make it so, she can do the concert and they can do the music video and they can release all the singles and get the album out and make money off of her. And there's a lot of attempts to try to satirize the music industry and the entertainment industry as a whole. And it's just very cliched, though, when it comes to the way that it goes about It's satire, and it's so one note and just so in your face and heavy-handed that it honestly confuses you at points. You don't know whether or not it's actually satire or just the show having some really bad writing, or it's taking itself seriously. And Jocelyn winds up getting a tip about this club by a friend of hers, the dancer gal, uh, who lets her in on this club that's in LA. And Diane and Jocelyn go to this club, and Jocelyn meets the club owner, Tetros. And they start hitting it off, and then before you know it, Tetros moves in. He moves in along with his family of musicians that are a part of his cult, and they move into Jocelyn's mansion, and they start taking over Jocelyn's career. Tedros starts uh, sexually and mentally manipulating Jocelyn, so you think, because there's a twist at the end, because of course there is. But he's using BDSM and foreplay and all of this other stuff to get a more sexual performance out of Jocelyn when it comes to her vocals. And he's like going as far to like choking her out and like covering her head in silk, and she's like heavy breathing, barely breathe, and then cuts a hole in it and then has her sing. He'll be like fingering her. All this kind of stuff to try to, get a more authentic vocal performance out of her, because she's supposed to be this sex pot who is horny. And that whole angle was just ridiculous. It was so absurd. It was like, okay, now you're trying to be 50 Shades of Grey, but with a pop star. What the hell is this? And at least this laughable scenes in episodes like where Tedros, he's fucking Jocelyn in a dress shop, but then she decides to get off him and doesn't want to go through with it anymore. And so he's left with blue balls, and then he's just like jacking off in a corner somewhere. That's actually a moment in this this series. And there's drama with Jocelyn and Leia, because Leia, she wants Jocelyn to help her more, promote her business, and be there more for her. But Jocelyn just starts to become enraptured by Tedros, and at one point, she becomes more enraptured by Tedros's family. And of course, she's still trying to get the album done, but now the album that she was going to do is getting scrapped in favor of this new vision of hers. And she's writing her own lyrics, and she's doing it with the help of Tedros. And Tedros brings in Mike Dean to help produce the album. And of course, her managers and the record exec and the Live Nation guy, they're on her ass because she hasn't really shown them anything, and the concerts are going to get canceled if they don't show them something. And eventually, uh, she wows them with the family and their performances and the new songs that she's came up with. And she gets the big concert and gets the big new uh, 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 record deal, and everything turns out uh, great for her in the end. And it doesn't turn out so well for the other people, though. It doesn't turn out so well for uh, um, Diane, who was given this deal to sing World Class Singer and to have her own record by Nikki. But then when Nikki saw Jocelyn's next album or saw a preview of it. She dropped Diane like a bad habit, and you still got the stuff with the Vanity Fair writer too, who's writing a piece. You have uh, 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 Jocelyn's co-managers trying to figure out who Tedros is and doing some investigation in terms of his past, and you're thinking that, okay, is this all gonna lead up to something satisfying and something worth a shit? And it never really does. It leads up to, Tedros getting exposed in a Vanity Fair article, and this is after Jocelyn seemingly is done with him because of his controlling ways and because he cheated on her, and she then decides to get back at him by inviting her ex over, and then has sex with her ex, and then because Tedros is pissed off, he sets up a campaign to essentially ruin her ex and his career with this random party girl who asks for a photo and poses suggestively. And so then they use that photo to smear this guy and accuse him of rape, and it causes him to lose his role in this upcoming superhero movie and causes him to get canceled. And this guy is supposedly somebody that Jocelyn loves, or at least you think, but she didn't really give a shit that he got screwed over. Because the twist is, the sympathetic Jocelyn that you were seeing throughout the series, who was crying and talking about her mom abusing her with a hairbrush and all of this other stuff that's supposed to make her into a more sympathetic figure, it's all a lie. It's all a con. She's just as much of a con artist as Tedros is, because the big twist at the end is that she made up the abuse and she invites Tedros back into her life. In fact, after Tedros is supposedly taken care of and forced out of her mansion by security, she then still gives Tedros a ticket under his real name for her concert, and then has him come out on stage and announces to everybody that this is my man. And then she holds him up to her face and says, "You're mine." And prior to that moment, Tedros is in her dressing room and sees the hairbrush, and he's like, that's the same hairbrush your mom beat you with, right? It's brand new." And she doesn't say anything, but she gives a look like, "Yeah, you get it now, don't you?" And I'm like, so she just did all this so she could get more clout, get more support from her followers. Okay, all right. I see where the script is going there. That's definitely subversive. I'll give it credit for that. But it just kind of it doesn't really seem like it's something that really felt like it was a natural progression when it comes to the reveal. It just feels like it's just random, like so many other things in this show, like the random sex scenes and the random BDSM moments, or the like stuff where you see one of the first BDSM or S&M kind of scenes you see is just out of nowhere near the end of episode 1, where all of a sudden you see Jocelyn choking herself and fingering her pussy. And you're like, What? You don't even know the context. It's just all of a sudden, they're just like, what in the hell? What the fuck? It's trying to be this clever show with this clever twist at the end that she was behind it all along. And I'm just like, I don't really buy that. And also, I don't buy that she's smart enough to pull that off. but I can see where Sam was coming from. I can see what he was trying to do, but I just think the execution sucked. It also has a lot of issues with its tone. Like, what are we trying to do? We're trying to be an over the top comedy, a sexy satire of the pop industry? Are we trying to be subversive in a more serious fashion about Me Too and cancel culture and uh others, the cult like devotion that people have towards pop stars and celebrities, and how that can actually lead to a genuine cult being formed and being a part of the industry? I don't know. I don't have a clue. And I wish Sam and everyone else involved with this show when it comes to the writing and the creative part of it, I wish that they did have more of a clue about what they were trying to do with this. Because there is some potential here. Like, t- take some elements of like Britney Spears' life and other pop stars' lives in terms of the tumultuous nature of their lifestyle and what they've been through, and make it into a satire of the music industry. Like, I think that's something that could actually work. But what you get instead is just so tone deaf and forced and about as tacky and laughable as Showgirls. It is such a superficial, vapid, and dumb show that's trying to be clever, and most of the time it completely fails. Trying to be funny isn't funny. Trying to be shocking and subversive, but it just winds up becoming degrading. And even from a music perspective, like the songs that The Weeknd did for this, they're okay. Family is all right. There's one song in this though that wasn't even for this movie, that they just used from another album from The Weeknd and just had it in the film. I mean, in the show. Sorry, I keep saying film, but I think it's probably because I think this looks like it was shot on film, which did give it a little bit of a different look and vibe, I have to admit. And I will give some credit to the cinematographer, Marcel Rev and Arseny Kacharaton and Drew Daniels and Julio C. Perez the fourth and Aaron I. Butler and Aleshka Farrow and Julie Cohen, who were the editors. So I think the cinematography and editing is pretty good, pretty solid for this show. But surprisingly enough, like I said, the music is kind of underwhelming, which is something that you wouldn't expect considering The Weeknd was very much involved with it. I think a part of it is that this whole family song, a big instrumental portion of it is just repeated constantly throughout this show, as if he just didn't have any other uh uh pieces of music that he could utilize. So it's just constantly used over and over again to the point where it just becomes really tiring and tedious. And for a show that has so much glitz and glamour and tits and ass and sex, it's boring. It's a really boring show, despite some nice looking shots of Lily Rose Depp in barely nothing at all. And honestly, the reason why The Idol is so dull, despite its attempts to be outrageous and over the top and erotic and funny and inspired and clever, is that the plot is very thin and the characters are even thinner. Like, there's no reason to care about any character in this or caricature that is written for this show. The one character that you could be somewhat sympathetic for in the idol herself turns out to be a completely narcissistic, manipulative bitch by the end of the show with the twist at the end. So there's really no reason to care about her journey, to give a shit about her comeback because she doesn't deserve it in the first place. And it's not like Tetros is a enjoyable enough foil to provide that much when it comes to engagement either. And definitely not his family, and definitely not the record exec and anyone else. Like there's no reason to care about the drama, what little of it there is throughout the series. There's no reason to care about these characters. They're all equally unlikable and flat. It's nothing at all. It's skimpy. It's threadbare. It's like a plastic Barbie doll bimbo who's wearing like a super tiny G-string and a bra that covers up her nipples, but not even all of her nipples, just like half her nipple. Like that's really what the idol is. It's some blonde, buxom, uh uh just plastic surgery riddled, Botox filled, fake as fuck bimbo wearing nothing except just the bare minimum so she doesn't get arrested for indecency. So I really don't know what else to say about it except thanks for watching my review of The Idol. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.